Hello and welcome to FDS. My name is Nate and I am your host, and today we are going to talk about an unstable cube. A cube is where you make a custom set of Magic the Gathering. You essentially make a list of all of the cards that you would like to see in a singular draftable set, and then you collect those cards, put them together, and create a draft for you and your friends. Now, I need to thank Jason Waddle over at Channel Fireball. He posted an article back in 2013 about creating a set cube and some of the math you may need to go through to accurately recreate the experience. This video here is more how I put it together and also what I use to keep it together. The earlier versions of cubes were often legacy cubes or Power 9 cubes that would have the most powerful cards within Magic the Gathering, and rarity wasn't a thing. And that's actually quite common among a lot of different types of cubes, is rarity isn't paid attention to. You would just take all of the cards, shuffle them together, and then put them into piles of 15, and then draft away. As time went on, people started making different types of cubes, all different types of cubes. You can make pretty much anything you can think of into a cube. Then inevitably, some people wanted to recreate the experiences of their favorite sets. They would create something called a set cube, and I did that with Unstable. It was the second set cube I made. The first one I made was Dominaria, but I basically created them under the same parameters. So I'll just use the Unstable cube as an example. An Unstable cube is a good cube to start with because the cards are so cheap. So if you are interested, you've been hearing me talk about how great Unstable was, and you want to maybe try it, then it's a good place to start because almost all of the cards are extremely cheap, and even the expensive cards in the set are less than $10. Probably less than $5, if I'm being honest. With one obvious exception, and that is the Unstable lands are expensive. They are a couple of dollars each, and when you need all of them, you might not be able to create an Unstable cube with Unstable lands, or it might take you a while. Just be aware of that. Now, as I said, regular cubes don't care about rarity. They just mix them all together. But with a set cube, if you're trying to recreate at least somewhat of the experience you had when drafting the actual set, then you do need to care about rarity still. When building a set cube, there are two extremes that you could take. The one extreme is an accurate representation of the set. You get 6 of every common, 3 of every uncommon, and 1 of every rare and mythic. Those numbers get as close as you realistically can to recreating the booster draft experience. The other extreme is customizing the set. And this is adding cards, removing cards, not having the exact same ratios, and you can pretty much do anything in between. I did a much more middle ground version with my Unstable set. I got 3 of every common, 2 of every uncommon, and 1 of every rare or mythic. This is also fairly common for set cubes. It's a little bit easier to get to 3 commons, 2 uncommons, and 1 rare without breaking the bank or driving yourself insane. Now, when I initially put the cube together, I did break down by rarity and color to ensure that I got the 3 common, 2 uncommon, 1 rare or mythic. Once I got there, I put all of the commons in 2 boxes, all of the uncommons in 1 box, and all of the rares in the other box. And then at that point, I didn't care if the colors were separated within the box. They were going to get mixed all together anyway, so it really didn't matter, as long as the rarities were kept separate. Now, Unstable has an extra complication, and that is Contraptions. If you are not familiar with Unstable, Unstable had a mechanic called Contraptions, which were special cards that had different card backs that were artifacts. They were like a separate mini deck that you had next to your actual deck. And then some cards would instruct you to build a contraption, where then you would pull one off the top of your deck and place it in a designated spot, and then it would give you a certain thing, depending on what that contraption did. This was a fun mechanic, but it did add a level of complication to the Unstable cube. There was one thing I considered doing initially to try to simplify it for myself, and that was remove all contraption cards, both the contraptions themselves and any cards that created them, but that seriously affected the set to the point where I wasn't sure it would even be fun to play at that point. So I decided, yeah, no, I'm going to tackle this. And I did the same 3 of every common, 2 of every uncommon, and 1 of every rare or mythic. But the difference with the contraption portion is I didn't focus on rarity. I just put the contraptions together. I treated them like they were their own rarity in and of themselves, and just mixed them together and kept them in their own separate box. There are cards in Unstable that require outside assistance from somebody who isn't playing in the game. And I knew with my play group and how we typically play, that probably wouldn't be a good thing to have in most games. But I didn't want to omit them entirely. So I created a cube sideboard, is what I call it. And essentially it's all the cards that are in Unstable that require outside assistance for the card to work. If I find myself in a place where I can draft with this set and outside assistance cards would potentially make it more interesting and fun, then I shuffle them in. So that's something else you can think about. Maybe if you are thinking of customizing the set in a way that you would enjoy, maybe consider doing it in a way where you can restore it to its original fashion. The other piece, and this is actually a piece I am still working on many years later, and that is building the land station. I wanted this Unstable cube to have accurate unstable lands, and I collected as many lands as I could at the time, and I've slowly been buying them over time. I'm trying to get 30 to 35 of each basic land, and that's proving to be expensive. But I have those separated as well. For a regular set, I take all the commons, shuffle them up, separate them into 4 piles. Uncommons, I shuffle them up, separate them into 2 piles, and then rare and mythics, I just have 1 pile. I get 11 commons, 3 uncommons, and 1 rare or mythic. I take that, put it in a cube-a-majig, and I'm ready to go. Unstable is a little different. Contraptions throw a wrench into things, pun intended. I do the same thing with the commons, same thing with the uncommons, and same thing with the rare and mythics. I just add 2 more piles of contraptions. I shuffle them up and make 2 piles off to the side. Then I do 8 commons, 3 uncommons, 1 rare or mythic, and 2 contraptions. Now, for those of you out there who are good at math, you'll note that that's only 14 cards. That's actually what the original Unstable packs had. They did have a land and a foil token. Randomly, you could get a Steamflogger boss instead of a land, but that's really not important for our purposes, so I decided to stick with the original. And again, put them in a cube-a-majig, and off I go. Yes, yet again, I'm talking about the Craftsman 10 compartment organizer. As you can see, this is what I'm using for my cube. Now, a couple videos ago when I was actually reviewing this organizer, I did mention that my Unstable cube was in this container. But as you can see, it looks a little different from that video because I 3D printed off a bunch of deck boxes that can fit within this, and I used those deck boxes to reorganize my cube to be a little bit easier to understand and handle. Now, what I like about this container is I can have counters and dice appear in the sides, and I also have enough room left over to include cube-a-majigs, so that way I have the entire cube in one box right here. So I have it all together, I can pull it out, prep it, take it to game night. The land station is here, play it with my friends on game night, bring it home, everything's in a neat little package. I will be transferring my Dominaria cube to one of these boxes as well, and I'm planning on making another one very soon, and that's with the Innistrad double feature. And I'll probably do some videos on that as well. Now, something else I want you to collect is that right there. This show is part of the CIP network, inspiring creativity, one episode at a time.